Hello everyone, Tim here. Welcome to the channel. This video we're going to be talking about blind buying of physical media in 2024. How do I personally handle it? What are my criteria for blind buying? I know blind buying can be one of those topics that some people are all for it and other people are like, nope, I won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I need to see everything beforehand. I do like to blind buy, but under certain criteria, and I'm going to break down my 4 major pillars on how I decide what I'm blind buying. We're going to start this off with my pillar number 1, which is taste. Taste is a pretty major one. I feel like this is actually should be the number 1 consideration above all else, because what you like should play into it instead of just picking anything just because. You as a film fan probably have a pretty good idea on the types of movies you like. If you love sci-fi, you might gravitate towards sci-fi. But if you hate sci-fi, don't blind buy sci-fi. Check it out first, possibly. Get some opinions on it, but don't just blind buy sci-fi. Or if you hate musicals, don't blind buy musicals. Things like that. You know your own personal taste better than anybody else, so taste should come into it. So, like, Vinegar Syndrome movies, a lot of that stuff doesn't gravitate towards me, but they have a newer sub-label, and I read about Little Darlings, and it sounded right up my alley. And I watched this, and I freaking loved it. I thought this was a fantastic movie. I highly enjoyed it, and as much as it surprised me, in a way it didn't, because I know my own taste pretty well. You can read a synopsis, watch a trailer, look at the people that are in it, and kind of get a gauge on, is this your type of movie? So yeah, I think taste should come really above all else as your number 1, because nothing else should come into consideration if it's not even the type of thing you'd want to watch. My number 2 pillar, which I feel like should be the next most important one. If you now have decided it's something that seems like something you can like, budget should be your next consideration for blind buying. Can you afford to do this blind buy? Is this taking your bank account down to almost nothing to blind buy? What is the consideration there? Because money matters. And so for me personally, I have kind of a $5 rule that I take way more chances if it's $5 or less, because digital rentals run that $3 to $4 on iTunes and Amazon. It runs about that $3 to $4. So if something is around $5, I have no qualms about just dropping $5 on something, because worst case, if I don't like it, it's like I did a digital rental that would expire anyways, and then I could just get rid of that disc. But on the flip side, there could be stuff like, say, the movie Brooklyn. So this has been on our shelf for quite a while, and we picked this up for a pretty dirt cheap price, and I got this recommended to me, and I'm like, oh, this is on my shelf. I watched it, and I loved it. Like, I thought this was a 5 out of 5 movie. It's fantastic, and this was just sitting on my shelf, and I got it dirt cheap. Marvelous blind buy. Super, super happy with it. Now, had I digitally rented it, I would have spent that $3, $4 or $5, and then I ended up buying this anyways. But I bought this for like $5 or less, and now I own it. It was a great purchase. So yeah, price it comes into major consideration. Whereas if something is, say, $29.99, like I did make a mistake on a recent blind buy. And I spent $29.99 on a blind buy I should not have. I broke my own rules in a way, kinda, you'll see. But, yeah, price should come into it. So, if something's on the higher end, look at it a little bit more with your taste, your budget, and decide, is this worth a blind buy or not? So now for my 3rd pillar on how I decide what I'm blind buying, and that happens to actually be labels. As silly as it sounds, because it's just the people releasing it. Does that really matter? Yes, it does, at least for me, because it kind of tells me ahead of time, what am I in for? So, like, a label like Scream Factory, because I'm a little bit more picky on my horror. Like, there's horror movies that are in, like, some of my favorites of all time, and then I'm way more picky on a bunch of others. I don't blind buy Scream Factory too much. I do it occasionally, but I don't do it at drastic amounts because there's more Scream Factory that doesn't click with me. So overall, I try to avoid. Whereas, like, say, the label imprint. Right here, I have some imprints. These were all blind buys. I never saw School Ties before grabbing this. Distant Thunder, On the Beach, all blind buys. I thought these were all great movies, and I kind of went in having a rough idea because Imprint releases a lot of stuff that is me. Like, they release a lot of classic movies, which I blind buy a lot of classics because it seems like even bad classics I still enjoy. This is not a bad one. This is a fantastic flick. But they release some kind of under-the-radar dramas. This was a great one with John Lithgow, really good, Ralph Macchio. And then this one was waiting on a Blu-ray for a long time, but another kind of under-the-radar drama. Imprint releases a lot of Tim movies, so I kind of jump into Imprint stuff with a little less hesitance than maybe something else. And then also, in that same sense, Criterion. These are all movies that I blind bought, and I loved all of them. I thought they were all fantastic movies, and I kind of feel like Criterion is specifically a label of discovery. I feel like that is the basis of Criterion, is to discover movies. And so I blind buy Criterion heavily. And then we got Kino Lorber is another one that I blind buy quite often. And it's partially because, first of all, they release a lot of classic movies, like a lot. So I blind buy a lot of classics from them. And then even some more contemporary classic stuff they release. And their 4K stuff has been great. Like, these are knockout, like, movies here. I love Spaceballs. Misery is great. These weren't blind buys, Great Escape. But, like, Kino releases, for the most part, quality movies. I did get burned buying the movie Boogans from Kino Lorber because of the stuff that they've released in the past. And I broke my own rule, kind of. I should have watched the trailer. But I kind of went off, hey, it's a 4K, and, like, a lot of their 4Ks are super quality. Now I know a little bit better. But in general, I trust Kino pretty well. So, yeah, label plays a big part into it for me. And then the last one, pillar number 4, super, super easy one, is Scarcity. Is this a limited steelbook? Is this a limited box set? Things like that. And as you're in the hobby for a little bit, you kind of get a decent idea on what is truly a more limited thing and what's not a more limited thing. So I kind of try to judge that stuff a little bit, and I will blind buy things that I think is going to be on the harder to get side. So say there is a Vinegar Syndrome set that is selling super quick. Vinegar Syndrome doesn't really re-release that set. They'll release like a standard edition of the movie, but like once that set's gone, that set's gone. And that happens with like Arrow box sets as well. Like they'll release a standard one, but that box set, like say the movie Witness, that wasn't a blind buy. I loved Witness, but like that box set went super quick. And now we're going to end up getting the standard edition coming out, but that box set's gone. And when the box set's gone, the box set is gone. So I kind of try to judge with Scarcity. This isn't always you can't always judge it. Sometimes things do get re-released, but Scarcity is my fourth in consideration type of thing. Everything else has to align first. And then, yeah, Scarcity would be my last major consideration. So I just went over 4 pillars on how I decide to blind buy. Why do I decide to blind buy? Well, there's something about this feeling of pulling a movie off the shelf that you haven't seen before, and it's kind of just been sitting there for a little bit, and you watch it, you love it. It's an awesome feeling. It is such a great feeling. Like when I watched that Brooklyn and loved it, it's an awesome feeling. And when you know your taste well enough and you kind of curate your blind buys in a way, you're not going to get burned as much. And one of my reasons I really heavily do love blind buys is because the discovery aspect. So Here's this movie, In the Fade. This is a German, like, revenge flick from I don't know how many years ago, but it's great. So I blind bought this. It was sitting on the, I can't remember what store, but I blind bought this and watched it, and I loved it. Absolutely freaking loved it because I blind bought it, watched it. Now, had I not blind bought this, no one talks about this movie at all. Like, no, I've never ever run across anyone that has brought this movie up. I never see it in anyone's halls. I haven't run across it on Netflix, on Hulu, on Paramount, on any other streaming service. It doesn't pop up in recommendations online on anything. Like, I don't think this would have came to, my eyeballs. My eyeballs would have never known this movie even exists unless I was researching Diane Kruger movies or something like that. Like, I would not have known this was even a movie if I didn't just blind buy it, pull it off the shelf, watch it, and freaking love it. There is a value to that discovery aspect, because if you don't blind buy certain stuff, there is a good chance you will never even know it exists then. It will never come up to you at all. No one will talk about it. No one will anything like that. And this is more so with the little bit more lower tier stuff, not the, Star Treks and Star Wars and Avatars and things like that are always kind of the big pop culture stuff. But these smaller type of movies, take a chance, honestly. Yes, you might not like it, but you might discover something you truly love that, had you not taken the chance, you might not even know it'll ever exist. You might go decades without even ever knowing it exists. Hopefully me showing this right now, someone will be like, maybe I am going to research that. But literally, I've never run across a single person mention that movie in anything. And had I not blind bought that, I've never would have watched it. So I find value in it. I love blind buying as long as I do it within my criteria. So I don't just go buy every movie that comes out weekly all willy-nilly just because, hey, it's a movie to add to the shelf. It's got to have some type of criteria to it, so I'm not just buying anything. But that's all I have. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on blind buying as a whole. Yeah, that's everything. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.